Good morning. I'm sorry there seems to be a delay. There's some screens I have to go through first, so I know you don't see that, but I've got a new headset and I guess it's getting adjusted or whatever. Anyway, good morning. This is Dwight, and thank you for joining me for the reading of Christ's letters. This will be Christ letter 4C. This is the third increment of what we've covered on Tuesday night teleconference, which you're free to join if you don't know about that. I have a conference every Tuesday night where we read the portion that I'll be reading in this letter, in this recording. But you can join it live, and that's on Tuesday evenings, New York time. Right now we're on Eastern Standard Time, so it's Tuesday evenings at 7:45 to 9:15. Okay, it's about an hour and a half, but it gives a chance to check in and talk about what's going on with the letters with us, and then we read and we offer dialogue that people can ask questions or share disagreements even. We have a lot of that, which is really good. And it's not really disagreement, it's just a different perspective. And because everything is right, we're all hearing it through our own filters, and it's right. So I apologize for that introduction, but it was necessary. I haven't introduced in a long time, and just in case it's the first one you see, I want to give you the background. Been doing this since November of 2006, and it's really a good time. There are a few of us on the call, so if you ever want to join, it's very intimate, very loving community, a community where we truly are experiencing Christ's way through these letters. So I will tell you where we're beginning tonight. First, if you had it electronically, you can search, and I don't know about Apple, but in Adobe for Windows, you can search with a Control-Shift-F. And if you put this in, man has been hiding, that will get you right to the place we are beginning in letter 4. Or if you're in a text, that you also can, whether, I don't know, all the various forms, can't do all the forms, but I have 6 that I have on my computer that I can do a word search and tell you we're beginning if you're beginning in any of these. So if you're reading from the book, Christ Returns Reveals Startling Truth, it's page 176, paragraph 4. If you're reading from first printing of Christ Returns Speaks His Truth, that's one with kind of gray clouds on the front with the moon shining through. The second one is a very brilliant, triumphant Jesus with the cross, showing his triumph over the cross, which these letters are all about. So if you're reading from that first one, it's page 200, paragraph 4. If you read from the second draft of Christ Returns Speaks His Truth, the one I attached to my emails at chapelinthesky@aol.com, it's page 127, top of the page, paragraph 1. If you're reading from the first draft of Christ Returns Speaks His Truth, which could be an earlier version off of the website, that's Christ Letter 4, and that's page 15, paragraph 7. And if you're reading from Christ Returns, the original manuscripts, it's letter 3A. Christ numbered them differently in the early manuscripts. Letter 3A, which is identical with all the other transcripts. And that's page 20, paragraph 3rd from the bottom. Okay, so go to the bottom and count up the 3rd paragraph. And if you're reading from the ebook, which you may have downloaded from Joanne's website, that's page 152. And also it's the 3rd paragraph from the bottom. So with that done, and all that kind of housekeeping out of the way, and using my intellectual portion of my Christ consciousness brain, I just invite us to all just go into that space of quietude. Buddha says the space between the thoughts. Well said, my Buddha. Christ calls it the state of stillness and silence from which all creation comes. Because before anything is, there is a no thing. And when consciousness activates the no thing that's ready to take in form, Consciousness gives it purpose, intention, and willpower. And those three, I believe we read tonight or next week, I don't remember. But just be in that place of no thought. Tonight we investigate the male and female aspects of humanity. And we're also taking the gender away and speaking of the masculine and feminine of the human being. In this time, Christ takes us to the perfect relationship of what it can be between a man and a woman. And also through this tells us how this universal principle, this creative process, the true processes of creation, which we play a major role, how this all works. So as we can understand it in the sexual intercourse and conception of humanity, of what we do know biologically, physically, and on all those planes, in the next letter, letter 5, Christ takes us into the nuts and bolts of the universe, into the masculine, feminine aspects of energy, the beginning of all creation, that's just waiting to come into some form. Everything it needs is there. The only thing it doesn't have is the consciousness to give it a purpose. And so when consciousness hits it, consciousness gives it purpose. And the purpose goes back to what's the initiating intention for this purpose to manifest? And what is the willpower? The universe willpower or human willpower that brings that purpose into fruition, into manifestation? So in this time of kind of giving an overview of what we'll be reading, which is kind of nice. So I just ask us now to just be prepared with that stillness and silence. That soil prepared to receive the good seed direct from the Christ universal through these pages, through the recorder bringing these thoughts and ideas onto physical form. So, and then have all the electronics and all the available resources to speak from this form into your ear again from Christ universal, through Christ individualized to Christ individualized. So this is all a process of Christ revealing itself from itself, around itself, from outside of itself, from all aspects of itself, all unifying all these factions, all these beautiful facets of us right to the center of our being, like the pinpoint of the universe where we are found, where we are identifying ourselves. And therefore, from that, we are identified in the universe, as Ernest Holmes tells us, in the science of mind. So I thank you for joining me, and thank you for this opportunity to introduce what we'll be reading. And as I say this, I just always want to say, this is true for all of humanity, that what I speak goes out over all these energy vibrations, which are all picking up this vibration of going out. And as it comes back from the satellites back down through the atmosphere and everything needed to speak to us directly, all that energy is affected with this light, this truth, this absolute that Christ is bringing us. So I ask us to just envision that, because as we envision this, during this time that I'm bringing this to you and the time that you actually receive it, during this time, these vibrations are continuing. They're available to you even before you turn the recording on. They're available to you. And this is the way the universe works. It's available to us. Jesus said in the Gospels, The Father knows your needs even before you do. And as we believe and trust that and find that to be true, we reinforce it and we see it constantly projecting itself before us. That the Father of us is in the instant ahead of us. So what I'm saying in this instant, I'm creating in that very next instant, instantaneously. And I'm doing that all through. And as soon as I put an interruption in that, I put an interruption in it. It does it create different creative process. So this is how this whole process works. I'm so excited that I could take this and bring this really intricate letter 5 that Christ presents to us and bring it into terms that we can fully understand and appreciate as we read through tonight's lesson through the human interaction of male, female, masculine, feminine, so we get a real foundation for letter 5. And I may even use this as a primer from now on because I think that would be a good thing. Okay, finally, I'm going to the text, and thank you for your patience with me. I trust this has been as meaning for you as I've felt the meaning of it for me and felt this is something to be shared. That's how I'm guided. Anything I speak, I feel connected with the one, and I believe, I trust, I expect that anything I say is from this presence within me, because this is what my communication, this is what my meditation and communion is all about, is allowing the lower Dwight, the lower consciousness of Dwight, the intellectual part of Dwight, to just be the observer during this time, that it gets to hear the truth. And so in knowing the truth, it sees when not truth is before it, because it's the judger and analyzer. When it sees the not truth before it, it can make the adjustment to go back within and say, oh, what's the truth? And bring it forth. So, sometimes in meditating before the reading, before the call, or even this reading, I really get into quite a state of being that is very, very real, very palatable, if that's the right word. Yeah, very real. And so I'm just bringing the reality of my experience to you to accept or reject any way you are led to do, just as Christ says in the letters. Yeah. We don't have to force these letters on anyone. We either are seeking the truth that's being revealed or we're not, and it's up to us what we do with it. Choice. So, okay, finally, again, man has been hiding from his own masculine nature in the name of purity and placing the responsibility for his downfall on woman. Do you hear that in the news so often, and even in the court system, the injustice of some rape cases where the judge has even, or the jury, whatever, has accused the woman of provoking the rape. And to me, rape is rape. I mean, there's just no, if it's not with consent, it's rape, and it's abhorrent. I mean, there's just no person in the world that deserves to be raped, male or female, gay or straight, or whatever identification we place with our gender. We are free to be ourselves, and we should never, 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 by society, be held accountable to what they consider norm. Okay, each man, each person is our own island. Each one of us has our own individualized consciousness that creates us. And even though I'm using my hands like it's this big, the consciousness and truth is infinite. Okay, I'm aware of where I begin. I determine where I end. But in truth, the consciousness of me, the consciousness of universal is one. There's no separation whatsoever. It's just how much of it can I perceive, and that's what these letters do for me. These letters open my perception greater and greater and greater to know that if I know myself to be God, which I do, or Christ, or the Father, whatever we want to call it, if I identify myself as a consciousness of me, it's the consciousness of me that creates. And so Christ is extending this consciousness. In truth, we're universal. And this is what Christ is revealing to us, that Christ as Jesus was contained to a body, but still he was much larger than his body. He was aware. He was his consciousness. He was aware of the Father. But after the crucifixion and resurrection, Christ has continually, constantly, consciously been growing. It begins with big, much bigger than human could conceive and perceive. But even afterwards, he's aware of my Christ consciousness is expanding to the universal. Okay, so he's saying this. He says, my consciousness is at the portals of universal. It's at the portals where does no thing end and something begin. What's that? And that's what Christ is saying. This is the portal I'm coming so close to, but I cannot enter that portal because once I consciousness go into the no form, I have to release consciousness. And without consciousness, I'm formless. Okay, so the point is, man basically blames woman for his downfall, for his sexual whatever, disability or whatever, okay? She made me do it. And it begins with the story of Adam and Eve, and I think Christ says that somewhere in the letters, that when we believe the story of Adam and Eve, that Eve tempted the male, Adam, after she was tempted by the serpent, and this story, this allegory has gotten to be the strong belief in the myth that woman is the temptress. And Christ takes us right through that. So I don't have to explain when I get there. Christ takes us right through that tonight. So, or this morning, whenever you're reading this, hearing this. So I'm going to read this paragraph because what it ends with is very important. Man has been hiding from his own masculine nature in the name of purity and placing the name of purity, oh, I'm good, I'm perfect, I'm the cat's meow, I'm what every woman wants, and then places the responsibility for his downfall on the woman, that her temptation, did this. So Christ asks, is this a sacred activity to blame the woman? Is it worthy? Should it continue? And previously Christ has identified himself with Muhammad and Buddha, and I know there's get a lot of hits on what about Muhammad? He's such a bad guy and everything. And the most recent conversation I had with a brother was, I don't know anything about Muhammad. I don't know anything about the Quran. I know nothing of Muslim. I know nothing of it. But what I believe of these letters as being directly from the Christ of Jesus and the Christ of Muhammad, and knowing Jesus as I do, Christ is saying here, the purity of my heart as Jesus is the same as the purity of the heart of Muhammad. And I would say that what has happened from Muhammad and Muslim, if that is distorted in any way, it's because the distortion is of the followers, but not of Muhammad. So I ask you with me to just be open to anything you've heard of Muhammad as a womanizer and so forth. Look for something bigger, because there's something bigger there. Christ is saying he came as a master. And so if we take this master and we color him if we clothe him in darkness, then we can't see the light. So we, Christ-natured, God-natured, peace-natured, harmonious-natured, need to remove that cloak and look for the purity that Christ talks about. He said Muhammad came to raise the level of equality of woman to the plane of the equality of man. Now, however he does this, I don't know. But that was his message that Christ says in these letters. So, and I took this time because I had this recent conversation, and it was so enlightenment because we both heard what was coming through me and what comes through these letters. And he said, well, why do you believe those letters? They're only channeled. I said, everything is channeled. Where does a thought that you're thinking come from? It's not from the brain, it's outside the brain. We're immersed in this thought atmosphere that all thought, all possibilities exist universally. And when we hear something, we give it opportunity to take action on this plane, whether it's as an Adolf Hitler or a Jesus Christ. We make the choice of how to use this consciousness that's given to us. So, yeah, so that's a lot about Muhammad. And I hope I'm going to offer people to listen to this. And even if they don't hear the rest of it, and I don't know how far along it is in the reading, but anyway, okay, so this is the Christ of Jesus, the Christ of Buddha, the Christ of Muhammad, the Christ of all the master teachers on the planet. Greater and lesser, because I know Gandhi was one of those, Martin Luther King was one of those, John F. Kennedy in his way was one of, I mean, there are many, many. We see more if we look for what they have done for civilization versus what they're doing against civilization. When we look only for the good and praise that, we see the good in everyone and everything, and we keep moving it forward into human consciousness. Okay, I'm going back to the letter. We speak to those of you who profess to adhere to the Muslim faith and who believe you are sinless or of pure mind because you have shrouded your women in heavy clothes to protect yourselves from temptation and prevent other men seeing your possessions. How greatly are you misled by your own passions? Now, this is not Muhammad doing this, okay? This is the interpretation of, and I don't know what it says, but what Christ is saying here to me is that, because we see the Muslim women, I mean, they're, some are dressed in lively clothes, but most are dressed in very drab, very disornate clothes of Muslim, not Muslim, of, there's a fabric that's similar to that in my mind, but it's not there right now. I'm not going there. And we see, the whole being covered up. One really could not tell the difference between a male or a female in that dress because there was nothing to show the feminine form. It's all hidden. And the male is trusting that I'm doing this so I'm not tempted. And so Christ addresses this. So by being protected from the exercise of the human desires, the human desires only increase until they break out in some virulent, brutal form. We can't hide the sexual desire. One of the things I like to say is we don't cure an alcoholic by taking alcohol away. And I'm just using that as an example. Okay. The addiction is the addiction. It's not the alcohol is just for that particular addiction, but the addictive behavior is what needs to be changed. Create in me a new heart, oh God. And Christ encourages us. If you're hearing this and you do have an addiction, I say, Christ says, continue reading the letters. Keep doing what you're doing. Continue reading the letters. The letters will bring us out of any addiction that we may have. And all we have to be is open to that possibility. Going to the meetings, one puts the faith in that possibility to cure, or at least be able to manage the addiction. And Christ's letters can not only manage, but I believe can also heal the addiction to the point where there's not even a scar, not even the slightest desire. Okay, like for me in smoking cigarettes, I smoked from age 17 to age 39, Pall-Malls, non-filtered primarily. And I stopped smoking many, many times. But the last time I smoked, the last time I smoked, as well as the last time that I quit, was January 1st, 1979. And it was very easy for me because all I said was, whenever I get the urge, I'd say, I think I'll wait a minute. And that's all I had to do. And my whole being didn't claim over that. I said, oh, okay. So I've never said I quit. I mean, I say that now because I can say it quite strongly, but I always say I've stopped. It's not I haven't quit because I don't want that part of me that says, why not? Oh, let's do it. So that is totally out of my mindset. That's no longer a possibility in my mindset. And so whatever, that's what it is. So by being protected, thinking that because I'm not seeing these women um, in a sensual way or in a suggestive way or in any way that they can tempt me, it doesn't take that temptation away, because the man is still looking under the garment for the woman, and he imagines in his mind what she might look like. Maybe not all men are like that, but I know some are. And it's like, it's, you know, we can't stop the addiction, until we address the addiction itself. So we say to men and women everywhere, true purity is only attained when you can be surrounded with every form of temptation. Visualize that. That's what I've done. Visualize myself with every nude woman if I want, or horror if I want, or whatever it is. Surround myself with everything that's in my mind that would give me satisfaction to some degree, to be able to have it, to be tempted by it. That's it. Surround myself with all temptations. And now, can you be in that state without any distraction? Can you still be in the state of looking at the temptation and appreciating the temptation and being respectful and let one another coexist in safety? I mean, that's just a beautiful thing. And this is the challenge that Christ puts to us. If we can do this, and if we can do it in our imagination, I guarantee we can do it in real life. Okay. So Christ is encouraging us. Here's the way you cure the addiction. Okay. True purity is only attained when you can be surrounded with every form of temptation and yet remain untouched by desire, unmoved by earthly feelings, untainted by earthly lusts, free of craving and longing for possession. Detachment. Purity in its every form transcends all earthly physical hungers. This is not a physical purity now. I know that, when I was in the Christian church and there was a thing about being born again and all that, well, they put a purity into the mind, but it contains judgment still. As long as there's judgment there, there's not purity. So there's a false purity, and Christ, through these letters, are bringing us the true purity. So he tells us what this purity is. And it's not for us to say, oh my God, I'm so impure. No, don't go there. It's allow myself to recognize I have impure thoughts. There is no sin, remember? Christ tells us that constantly, not only through the letters, but in the Gospels, but it's missed. Judge not. There's no sin. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing bad. Everyone is just expressing themselves. I'm sorry, this really is getting lecturing, but there's so much meat, because Christ tells us in last week's recording that until you understand the masculine, feminine, the male, female roles, you cannot ascend. So it's imperative that we understand this, And Christ spends the whole or most of the next letter on this, to the very scientific aspects of it. So yeah, the purity, okay. Purity is the ability to see temptation for what it is, grossness of thought and feeling, which traps the senses of men and women into doing unclean things. I only do unclean things because I let temptation rule, That's simple. At the moment of temptation is the time for me to make the choice. When I was addicted to cigarettes, they called it addiction. I would never accept that lie. Okay, I just accepted that as a myth, because if I call it an addiction, that means I can't break away from it. So I would say, even to someone who's hooked on heroin, to take that word away. Don't call it an addiction. It's a habit maybe, or something. Habit's okay. I can deal with a habit. So we only do unclean things because we have unclean thoughts. Christ isn't saying there's anything wrong with that. He's just saying unclean thoughts keep you in that state of uncleanliness, that state of where there's not respect. Now, that's not saying that, in this transitionary period, for me, I've had many women in my life, um, and every one has been a loving relationship. Every one, regardless for length of time, the temporary, everything is temporary. Every relationship was meaningful to me and my partner, um, because it wasn't lust. I mean, lust may be there, but the actual intimacy of our relationship was pure, you know, natural. So anyway, so it's one of the things I do like about me, and it's one of the things that can get me in trouble, is I'm very open. Um, very open. I'm not a hidden book. I'm not a hidden story. Everything that I've ever done in my life is open to anyone that wants to hear any of it. I'm just selective in who I share it with. And this type of conversation, with the intimacy we have, I'm very safe knowing I'm sharing this with you, because I feel safe sharing it with those that I have eye contact with. So, okay. So a truly pure person desires only the clean and honest environment suited to their innate longing for spiritual love and spiritual beauty of self-expression in every facet of our lives. This is true purity. Okay? And it first resides within us. Now, maybe it's easier for me at age 77 to take this on than I was when I was in my um, 20s and 30s, where I was very active, dating-wise and divorce-wise. The woman always divorced me until I met my life partner, and that time I did choose the divorce. It was my church over the marriage. And then from the church over the marriage was my wife over the church. Okay. So it's a very, very beautiful thing. So our purities will give us the greatest joy and the greatest freedom, because in this purity there's no attachment, there's no lust, you know. And that's a very healthy state of mind. I mean, that's just the way it is. We don't go through in a state of piety, we still enjoy life, you know. One of the concerns I had, another very personal piece, um, is after my second child. This was 1970. Um, at that time, zero population growth was very, very important in my life and in the lives of humanity. We were seeing how fast humanity is progressing. And there was that period, I don't know how long, but it was a period of zero population growth, have two children. And I was fortunate to have a boy and a girl. So I decided to have a vasectomy. Excuse me. But the question, excuse me, the question I had was, the question I had, which was important to me, was, will I still experience ejaculation? And the nurse said, absolutely. She said, the only thing, the ejaculation is the sperm and the semen. The semen is the food for the sperm. And we get into that in either this letter or letter 6. I don't remember, when Christ again talks about sex and intercourse. So she said, so you'll still experience that. So, that was important to me. I don't think it would have been a deciding factor, but it could have been. But it threw it totally out. It was no choice then. It was like, oh gosh, this takes nothing away from me, and it helps my family and my family planning and my planning for humanity, because we are overpopulated. We're overrunning the resources that are available to us. We can keep producing them, but sometime that from which we produce them from is going to run out. Just think of the air. Every time we cut a tree down, every time we stop the oxygen release from the plants in the water, when we take oxygen off, we can probably survive for a while, but there's going to come a time when when we're going to be over that ridge, over that critical factor where one of two things has to happen. Either we kill the earth or the earth kills us. You know, at one point, I think, and I think that's the race we're on. That's why I'm so committed to Christ's letters, because this is his coming again to say, you people are headed right toward destruction. So I've come again, as I did 2018 years ago, to try to shift man's way of thinking away from the lust and the impurity and so forth, to bring you into the true Garden of Eden, which you can create, the true heaven on earth, which you can create. You've created the hell. Now I'm saying that same law that you use, that same consciousness you use, you can shift it to create the heaven on earth. So I'm enjoying this, and I will try to read more because um, it's time to hear what Christ is saying from the letters versus just from Dwight. So a truly pure person desires only the clean and honest environment, and that's what we attract to us. I don't see a polluted earth at all. I really don't. My whole being is seeing my whole being pure is seeing purity. So I see an earth that's sustainable, that can sustain itself. And if it has to take out portions of mankind to bring into balance the equality of support and mankind, we have to be giving as we receive, because that's the way the whole universe works. It gives as it receives as it gives. It's a flow of energy and thought form. And this is what we are to do. And when we stifle it or misuse it in any way, we get the results. So that's why Christ came back in 2000. He said, you know, when I was here 2018 years ago, or 2000 years ago, because he came at the beginning of this millennium, through these letters as a spirit, not as a human being, he said, we've tried that. That didn't work. So I'm going to come directly to the Christ within you, or the Father within you, and I'll let you know who and what that is. So again, he's bringing these letters to us to save us from the destruction. And in reading the letters, I find if everyone reads these letters and they stop making sense to them, if they were taught in every synagogue, every temple, every church, every holy place, we would definitely have peace on earth, because we have one text, and this text applies to all religions, all philosophies, all ways of life, because not a religion or a moral code, as Christ tells us. So don't feel this is a moral code. This is just stating that the highest expression that you can express is so beautiful and so wonderful, and takes nothing away from your joy. In fact, it adds to it, because when lust is removed, the joy is more intense, because it's two people participating in that same joy. It's not all for me or all for you. You know, it's we share in the experience. I'm thinking of lovemaking. You know, it's just sharing the experience of giving without taking, and taking and receiving without taking away. You know, it's just a flow of love energy, of Christ being Christ to itself, God being God to itself through another human being. So we attract that to us. You know, that's why I guess through all my relationships that I have attracted Thelma, because she and I are this absolute pure being, you know, and we just see how everything works for us so beautifully and easily. We're getting ready to go on vacation and we're going back and forth with things, and yet it's like we made this decision and it was right, and we changed that decision, and um, looked at the conflict a little bit of, we're leaving on Friday and now we're leaving on a Monday, and you know, in my mindset, I'm all prepared to leaving on Friday, and her mindset is again planned on Monday, because we talked about Friday, and I'm sure that she, you know, we both have our way of thinking. We're both right. This is the thing. This is where we come from. We are both right. So there's not argument to be contended with. It's just conversation, dialogue of what do we want the outcome to be. So the outcome to be is, okay, so Monday is when we're leaving. But in the whole process, there's been this beautiful love, this beautiful respect, this beautiful equality, this beautiful, well, I kind of, being the male, sometimes I push a little bit that, well, I really know that you said it this way. but I'm so open to being wrong so many times in that I know that she's probably right, and it doesn't really matter. You know, the thing is, when we're pure, that's what we attract to us. When we're impure, that's what we attract to us. And this is why we say there are no victims. You know, it's like if we live in a fear, that's a whole other. I mean, that's a whole sermon itself. So, you know, that's where Christ has come. He's come to take the victimhood away from us. He's come to bring us into the mastery of ourself, bring us into the Father within us, the creator of us, the consciousness of us, which is not only within us, but it's around us, and it's, as I say, universal. Okay, I'm going back to the letter. However, true purity cannot be achieved unless there have first been the long years of temptation. And I can attest to that. Okay, we call it sowing the seeds. You know, it's like a rites of passage. Oh, yeah, he's got to sow his seeds. You know, and we see it as a wrong thing. But Christ is saying here that you've got to do that. You've got to realize your temptations so you can at least taste it and know, okay, I don't have to do that again. You know, if I don't like peanuts, well, I can determine that the first time I have one. Say, oh, yeah, that's distasteful. So we need to look at the temptation first. You know, it may smell good and it may feel good and everything, like a lemon. You know, I mean, awesome. But bite into it, and it's like, oh my God, no, I don't think I want to do that again. So, you know, Christ is saying, in order to become pure, we have to recognize our impurity and bring it in. Okay. And it may not be necessary. I think there are those who walk this path who haven't had the experience of life that I've had. And I'm sure I haven't had the experiences of many people. The temptations just haven't been there for me, you know. So however, true purity cannot be achieved unless there have first been long years of temptation. It is a necessary, but he's not saying you have to participate in the temptation. It is a necessary part of your spiritual development. Unless you have been sorely tempted at times and have eventually come to understand that there is a higher road to walk for self-denial and of sincere concern and caring for a good woman, you'll never attain a state of true purity. You at least have to, you know, address it. You'll be enslaved by your desire and will be in constant turmoil of inner conflict. I want, I can't have, I want, I can't have, I want, I can't have. Very playing for the ego. Therefore, do not avoid temptation by covering women and living in artificial conditions of pseudo-purity. Rather, men and women, remove your clothes. Revere each other's bodies as the outer, visible, beautiful forms of the inner divine consciousness, and experience the release that true purity will bring to you. So think that if you're a man or woman, um, you know, that's another area where I think we've come into our equality of the sexes. You know, what men want, women also want, generally. Okay, different ways. I mean, this is the way we're constructed. But the thing of Christ's letters is now we can construct it differently. Um, Men should be respectful of womanhood, and Christ says that all through here. Suffer grievous temptation and overcome. Take your conflict to divine consciousness and seek its power to help you overcome your physical longing. For in this way, you will find the freedom, the peace of mind you're basically seeking. Okay, when that conflict is removed, you know, it may be, I know I'm keeping this in a very sexual nature, but if a man wants to seduce a woman, he wants to placate her, you know, but he has sex on his mind. We know this is the way the man thinks. You know, he has the line or, you know, the way of expressing his appreciation and desire. Okay, and so Christ is encouraging us. So if you see a woman like this, then in that very moment, see her as a spiritual being. See her as the God essence. Yes, attractive. Nothing wrong with attractiveness, but be attracted to everybody, because what we're attracted to, even though it's the outside appearance, it's really the inner beauty that we're seeking, isn't it? I mean, yeah. So, and that's what Christ is saying here. Suffer grievous temptation and overcome. Take your conflict to divine consciousness and seek its power to help you overcome your physical longing. For only in this way you'll find the freedom, the peace of mind you're basically seeking. You know, we can get fulfillment in just just knowing it's already done, it's already beautiful, you know, be in the afterglow of it, um, without even experiencing it. You know, if we're looking for that, the only thing that's missing is a release, but the emotional, the mental um, relationship exists, because the good of me is looking for the good of you, the good of you is looking for the good of me, and when we're doing that for and with each other, we come into this beautiful place of intimacy and safety and equality and respect. So it's what we call namaste, you know, the God of me, the universal that I understand and know and recognize as the universal of what you know. We can call it the Christ, the Father, God, whatever, the Buddha, um, the perfect being. But we salute that. We know that exists in everyone because this God is everywhere present. So if at the moment you seek relief and release of your craving by giving way to it, there is no freedom or release. The self-same craving will return in due course, and once again you will know the searing conflict. If again you give way, again the conflict, even more intense. This awaits your decision to stand firm in the power of divine consciousness until the craving is finally subdued by perceiving the sacred beauty, the reality behind and within all physical form. And again, I go back to my cigarette smoking of those days, because you know I gave up many times and I would pick it up again. Oh no, can't believe I did this again. I'm hooked again and blah blah blah. And I knew, you know, right when I was hooked again. One time it took me three cigarettes to say, ah yes, this is what I remember. Bang, another couple of years. The highest spiritual, the highest spiritual, the highest spirituality, I'm sorry, the highest spirituality between the sexes is when man and woman can be together naked and at peace together in a state of mutual reverence of soul, mind, heart, and body. It makes lovemaking a whole different experience, doesn't it? I think that's what Tantra, I've only heard about Tantra love making, but I think it's that similar, of just respecting one another's nudity and appreciation of the total being, not just the sexual. In such spirituality, all they feel for each other is love and regard for the well-being of the other. Out of such love and compassionate, tender caring will come a union of ecstatic being that few have experienced. And if intended, a child is conceived in at this time, it's of incomparable beauty of body and mind will be conceived. And I have a long story, but I'm going to make it short. I know and believe I was conceived in this state of love consciousness between my father and my mother, because of the love that is so real in me. In the centuries ahead, when people have begun to evolve spiritually on every level of the humanhood, such a love between partners will be normal, and the kind of selfish sex, seeking only physical satisfaction, as indulged in at this present time, will be regarded as utterly degrading, as abhorrent as rape. Okay, and I think our human consciousness is moving toward this state. seeing the movies that are coming out. Um, there's many more of them than there used to be. Um, there's much less sex and nudity and much less violence in the movies of today. And it's to me, it's showing that at least in America, I believe I'll just speak from America. I don't know the rest of the world, but this is speaking of America anyway, that we're getting a different quality, and the others are still there, and they're still, attracting their audiences and everything. But I'm just saying that there's more choices now for those of us that don't want the abuse of sex. That's or any of the violence. Okay. At the present time, the highest spiritual way to follow to be God to the sexes is to acknowledge and abide by the perception that men and women were created to perform special tasks in life, suited to their underlying natures. The man impregnates the woman. Without the woman's goodwill and help, the man would go to the end of his days childless, without a human being to carry on his name. Therefore, the man should treat a woman as wholly equal. Therefore, the man should treat a woman as wholly equal, but born to carry different responsibilities. He should give her the highest respect and love and care at all times, to enable her to carry her burdens with greater ease, for it is she who gives visible form to what is first conceived in mind. When a woman receives a sperm, which unites with her ovum within the recesses of her body, a miracle is wrought, to which you, the man, have done nothing to contribute other than your sperm in a moment of delight, in which is your reward. I just love Christ. It's just so intimate, the connection he makes with us. You can only, this is to the man now, you can only contribute to the continued health and normal development of the miracle you have given life to in your partner's body by your unfailing, caring love for her well-being and health, and protecting her from all emotional and external harm. This is your masculine responsibility. And we see that in nature all over, where we see the male of the species protecting the female while she is carrying or caring for the eggs, whichever. Only in this way do you deserve to remain at her side as father of her child. Christ gives us all the aspects. That's what I love about the letters. If you fail in this, you have no value as father to the child and have no value to yourself as a man born to manifest in your spiritual divine consciousness father within your physical life. A man who harasses a woman carrying his child, who treats her with contempt, who offers harsh and brutal words and physical treatment, is breaking the most fundamental law of existence, which male and female should be united in equality of divine beingness. Women who are respected and loved and protected should equally respect and love and offer refreshment of spirit and body to her partner, nurturing his capacity for giving of himself to her. A woman who does not nurture her partner with caring tenderness and love is depriving his masculine spirit of the will to endure in face of difficulties. Oh, I'm sorry. A woman who does not nurture her partner with caring, tenderness, and love is depriving his masculine nature of the will to endure. In the face of difficulties, he encounters so in other words, he loses his will. The temptation becomes stronger, but still, the man has choice. And if the woman, for whatever reason, doesn't want to have sex or doesn't want to make love, that should be respected. What Christ is saying here, that some men take this as feeling pushed away and is more susceptible to his temptations. Okay, so he's saying keep the balance there, keep the respect there. He may seek his solace from another source, men or women, drink or drugs, or by isolating himself within the household of use neither to partner nor children, or get caught up in its work, which happens many times. And I speak of the man mostly here because I think it's mostly the man. I know females also do this and have the opportunity and capability within them to do these things because we carry both masculine and feminine. But generally, it's the man that the Christ is talking to. Therefore, men and women have an equal responsibility to cherish each other. Just as the man must learn to channel daily the father aspect of divine consciousness toward family and work, so must woman learn to express the mother aspect of divine consciousness in her daily life. Those who deny this truth will be denied access to the celestial kingdoms until they have increased their spiritual perception and prayerfully changed their attitudes. Only when their vision is lifted above the earthly human perception of male and female, and beyond their earthly desires and ego drive, to the reality out of which we have drawn our being, will we escape the wheel of reincarnation and find entrance to the ultimate joy and glory. Again, the purity. Okay. If within a culture a woman is regarded only as a possession, an object of a man's desires, and not treated as a woman, absolutely equal with a man, such a culture has not understood the true nature of man and the true nature of woman. Man and woman are two equal halves of one whole. When single and alone, the man is manifesting but one aspect of his source of being. And when woman lives alone and single, she also manifests but one aspect of her source of being. So that's beautiful. A lot of us appreciate our alone time, but Christ is saying, but the ultimate wholeness of you is to be the have conscious connection with the other physical part of you, the masculine, the male and female, to become whole. It's not that we're unwhole, it's just that we're not whole, because we're whole in whatever we are already. But we can, in the human form and physical form, we can always improve upon perfection until, we can, if we can perceive perfection, we can always perceive something beyond that, because there's always a thought above the thought I'm thinking. That's the universal. And there's always something higher to achieve. In stopping smoking, I was excited when I did a day, 2 days, a week, a month, and then it was easy and effortless. It's like, wow. And then it was 6 months, and then a year, and then decades. It's like, wow, how easy this has been. So the more we practice the purity, the shift, the easier it is for us, and we attract the like way. So as they come together, okay, the man has been by himself, the woman by herself. As they come together in love and unity of spirit and body, they discover the joy and ecstasy of universal consciousness in equilibrium, in the beautiful balance. This entire process is clearly set out in letters 5 and 7. Therefore, the combination of the masculinity of the man and the femininity of the woman is essential to make a whole drawn from the source of being. Out of this combination is formed a whole child. Okay, we can't have a child with just a man or just a woman. Okay, we have to have, for conception to exist, there must be the sperm and the egg, ultimately. When I was in the desert in Palestine, I first perceived that the overriding nature of universal consciousness creativity, our source of being, was intention. the intention to create, plan, and design, and then to bring forth that design by growing it, feeding, heating it, healing it, protecting it, and fulfilling its every need in a disciplined manner. Both male and female have been evolved in physical form and consciousness to experience. I'm sorry, I had a little interruption there, so let me read this again. Both male and female have been evolved in physical form and consciousness to experience intention and express this intention in all ways possible in our lives. This is the very first act of creativity. Without intention, there would be no creation. Intention is the origin of and permeates the whole of existence. Intention defines the nature of the deed, loving or destructive. Okay, so again, we have consciousness. We can't have consciousness without intention. There has to be some purpose, and there has to be a reason for consciousness to come into being, and everything, our subconsciousness from that to achieve the purpose. The male and female have been individualized to experience and formulate intention in their lives. This is the very first impulse of creativity. When Thumb and I do our wedding ceremonies, and we come to, there's a part of the ceremony that can be the lighting of the unity candle, and they each have a candle, and they light the unity candle, and then they return their candles to their candle holders, okay? We tell them do not blow them up because you maintain your individuality, and you also have recognized your unity of being, what you want to accomplish as a couple. Okay, it may be income, it may be where to live and so forth, but the couple makes all the decisions, and it's made up of the individuals working toward the one, and the one back to the whole, to the individuals. Okay. Male and female have also been individualized to experience and express willpower. Willpower in the male is experienced and expressed primarily as activity. In primitive forms, he moves out into the environment to fulfill his intention. Therefore, he dons the robes of the leader and quester. He was individualized to think and work to fulfill his purposes without the encumbrance of emotions. Willpower in the female is motivated and experienced primarily as feeling. So here's, you can see how the two come together. The man doesn't feel very much, and the female does. So, she brings that aspect into the collective consciousness for decision-making and choices. Willpower in the female is motivated and experienced primarily as feeling. The need to nurture the original intention and bring it purposefully to full form, full term, fruition, through the process of caring, feeding, clothing, repairing, teaching, and protecting. Purpose is entirely different to intention, since purpose comes down from the mental plane of intention and becomes an emotional drive, a desire to formulate, a means to achieve the intended end. A powerful intention to do something becomes a purpose behind continued existence. In this way, thought and feeling are married to perform the work of creation. Thought and feeling. It's like again, the semen feeding the sperm so the sperm can do its work. The feeling does the work for the thought to come into form. It's the masculine feminine aspects working together to bring about creation. So they're married. The male is constantly roaming, seeking new ideas, new ways to fulfill his intentions to give him purpose in life. So always seeking, always analyzing things so we can be seeking solutions to them. The female's intentions are purpose personified, sensitive and stable, prepared to make sacrifices for the loved ones. Therefore, the two basic impulses within the source of being, expressed in physical form as male and female, are interdependent. A call before the 4th of July 2 weeks ago, Nathaniel was on, and he said, I think that Americans, instead of calling it Independence Day, should call it Interdependence Day. And what a beautiful thought form, isn't it? Interdependency. That's what government should be all about, is interdependency of how do we use the good of all, and how do we subdue the not so good. Punishment doesn't work. We know that. We still do it. Doesn't work. So Christ's way is a new way of bringing forth all this beauty on our earth. Because of his masculine mobility, his leadership drive, the male has considered himself superior to the female. This is because she remains stable, creating security for the male. But the feminine drive is a drive of unconditional love, a drive worthy of the highest respect and consideration to enable her to flourish and perform her innate purpose within the household in the peace of mind and joy. The man's role is to provide physical security and material means of subsistence for the family. The woman's role is to provide emotional security and the emotional means of personal fulfillment and joy within the family environment. And this is where we're going to stop the reading for today. Thank you. I know this has been really, really long. I appreciate if you've listened to the whole thing. I'd be interested, because I know I go off on things like this. I'd be interested to know if you find it helpful, even if it's something that disturbs you. Let me know that. I would like to know what level, what degree of intimacy you want from me or don't want from me. Because my goal is to bring world peace by December 31st, 2018, by the end of this year. And I know we can do it. And so I'm very committed to allowing Christ to say anything through me that I can think help you see something new, something refreshing, a way of making yourself more powerful in your life by recognizing the power of the Father within you and the ability to bring it forth. So, Chapel in the Sky at AOL.com for communication. And you can follow me on YouTube. That's channel. My channel is chapel in the sky. Hyphens are needed. So God bless you. Have a blessed day, a blessed week, a blessed month, a blessed year. The year of peace on earth. Spread it to all that you see. Know that everybody makes a difference in your world and in your life, as you make a difference in your world and your life, and in theirs as well. Namaste. Thank you for being with me today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.